lock on.
My greatest weapon.
On a deserted island where a lonely watchtower stands tall, against the misty horizon lives a bald man, now going by the name Mason, who is quietly observing a supply boat from afar as it slowly approaches the shore, carrying his entire weekly supply of necessities, the only link between Mason and the outside world. When the boat docks, a man asks his young niece, named Jessie, to carry the supplies onto the island. The little girl carefully approaches Mason's house, places the items in front of the door, and leaves a small gift as a friendly greeting. Clearly, she is trying to get to know this mysterious guest, yet Mason has absolutely no intention of responding. He hides in the shadows, refusing all human contact. Seeing this, Jessie has no choice but to quietly leave, and that scene has repeated itself for many months, day after day. He lives in solitude in a house in the middle of a deserted island. His only companion is a loyal dog for Mason. The rare and almost only joy in this tedious life is games of chess, where he can temporarily forget the outside world and the things weighing heavily on his heart. Time quietly passes for several more months until one day, Jessie appears on the island again with her familiar delivery trip. This time, she won't let it slide, calling his name loudly, forcing Mason inside the house to step out and ask what she wants. Taking that opportunity, Jessie expresses the frustration in her heart. She says that for many months, every time she delivered items, she left him a small gift, but Mason never once responded or even acknowledged their existence. Facing those reproaches, Mason bluntly declares that after today, she doesn't need to come back anymore. The callous words make Jessie unable to hold back, and she talks back, asking why he is behaving so poorly. But Mason doesn't bother to explain. He simply slams the door in. The little girl's face hurt. Jessie returns to her uncle's boat, but at that exact moment, a large storm suddenly hits. The wind howls, and the waves roll up violently, turning the water into an uncontrollable fury. Amidst the chaos, the small boat carrying Jessie is capsized by the waves. The girl struggles and then gradually sinks into the swirling water. From inside the house, Mason sees the entire event through the window. Without a second of hesitation, he immediately rushes out, jumps onto his boat, and heads straight into the heart of the storm. Amidst the blinding rain and wind, Mason plunges into the water, bracing himself against the fierce waves, risking his life swimming toward Jessie to save her. When he reaches Jessie, Mason is shocked to realize her uncle is no longer there. He was submerged by the fierce current and drowned in the storm. With no time to grieve, Mason uses all his strength to pull Jessie onto the boat. He frantically tries to save her, continuously performing chest compressions and mouth-to-mouth resuscitation in desperation. After a few seconds of breathtaking tension, Jessie suddenly coughs violently, spits out water, and gradually regains consciousness. Mason quickly takes Jessie back to the house on the island. When checking her condition, he discovers that Jessie is quite seriously injured with deep gashes on her leg. After stabilizing the situation, Mason is forced to tell the heartbreaking truth that her uncle did not survive. That grim news hits like a fatal blow. Jessie completely breaks down, sobbing uncontrollably at the immense loss that happened so suddenly. The next morning, Mason re-examines the wound on Jessie's leg. He carefully cleans the wound, bandages it, and treats it to the best of his ability. During that time, Jessie shares that besides her uncle, who just passed away, the two of them had relied on each other all this time. But that answer does not surprise Mason because Jessie's uncle was actually his old friend. They both served in the Navy together. After revealing the truth, Mason leaves the house to continue his daily chores, leaving Jessie alone in the house in the middle of the lonely island while Mason is away. Jessie rumbles through the house and finds a knife. She quietly keeps it with her as a means of self-defense in case something bad happens. That night, Mason suddenly wakes up to Jessie's screams in a nightmare. He approaches to reassure her, but in a panic, Jessie suddenly pulls out the knife and points it directly at him. Mason is not frightened, nor does he react harshly. He speaks calmly, gently soothing her so that Jessie gradually regains her composure. When the fear passes, Mason even carefully shows her how to hold the knife correctly as well as basic self-defense should she one day be forced to protect herself. That action shows that beneath the cold exterior, Mason truly cares about Jessie's safety. Day by day, Mason gradually cares for Jessie like his own daughter. He looks after her every meal and sleep, ensuring that Jessie is always safe and well provided for. Jessie also gradually integrates into the new life on the island. She becomes close with Mason's dog, spending hours playing with it. Seeing that scene, Mason feels a simple joy in his heart for the first time in a long time. Not long after Jessie discovers that Mason never named the dog, she excitedly decides to call it Tommy. That simple but warm name doesn't face opposition from Mason. He is even surprised that Jessie also knows how to play chess, and her skills truly impress him. However, that brief peace is quickly shattered. A week later, when rechecking the wound on Jessie's leg, Mason realizes the swelling hasn't subsided at all. He understands that his temporary measures are not enough. Jessie needs medicine and proper medical care. With no other choice, Mason decides he must leave the island. He gets on the boat, heading toward the nearest town to find medicine to treat the girl. At the store on the mainland, Mason always pulls his hat down to hide his face, intentionally avoiding security cameras as a habit deeply ingrained in his subconscious. Every move of his is cautious and secretive, leaving no trace behind. At the same time, across the ocean, in a tense atmosphere, hearing in the British government, Manafort, the former director of MI6, is being relentlessly questioned by MPS about a top-secret program he created called EVA. This is a system for illegally monitoring telephone communications on a global scale, directly providing intelligence data to MI6. Clearly, it is a serious violation of the privacy of millions of people facing heavy allegations. Manafort still firmly justifies his actions. He asserts that Project EVA has prevented countless terrorist plots and saved many innocent lives. However, the court does not accept that argument and orders the program to be shut down immediately. Leaving the hearing, Manafort immediately seeks out the Prime Minister for discussion. The Prime Minister understands very well the immense strategic value of Project EVA, but in the context of an approaching election, he cannot publicly protect such a scandalous program. The Prime Minister tells Manafort frankly that he needs to temporarily stay quiet, at least until the election is over. In return, Project EVA can still operate secretly for a short while longer on the condition that Manafort withdraws from the public spotlight. Returning to Mason while shopping, he casually picks out new clothes for Jessie. As he leaves the store, he accidentally walks behind a group of famous people filming a video. He is completely unaware that the video has been collected and analyzed by MI6 EVA system in just an instant. The system scans Mason's face and immediately flags a warning. The information is sent straight to Roberta, the new director of MI6. Upon opening the file, Roberta learns that Mason is an international terrorist. Without any hesitation, Roberta immediately orders her subordinates to deploy a special task force to capture Mason at all costs. The next morning, Mason finishes treating Jessie's wound and bandages it carefully. At the same time, Jessie is also extremely excited with the new clothes. A rare smile blooms on her face after the gloomy days. Night falls, and the two sit down for dinner together in a seemingly peaceful atmosphere. However, the instincts of a seasoned soldier quickly speak up when Mason hears unusual sounds echoing from outside. He moves to the window to observe and immediately realizes a boat is approaching the island. On the boat are many officers armed to the teeth who are landing as soon as they set foot on shore. Mason activates traps prepared in advance. In just a moment, several officers are taken down. The survivors fall into chaos, being torn apart one by Mason's defense systems. One of them manages to discover Mason's position and opens fire, hitting him. Despite being wounded, Mason does not slow down. He charges straight into the enemy formation and engages in close combat against Mason's terrifying speed and skill. No one can stand their ground. During the melee, an officer tries to approach Jessie, the dog. Tommy smells danger. It rushes forward to attack to protect the girl, but is met only with a cold gunshot. The dog collapses on the spot. Witnessing that scene, Jessie indignantly rushes toward the enemy, but she is immediately grabbed by him and dragged away outside. Mason remains cold and precise, taking down the remaining men one by one. Seeing Jessie in danger, he immediately turns his gun and shoots down the man holding her in the nick of time. In the next second, Mason rushes to Jessie's side, telling her they must leave here immediately. Mason quickly gets on the boat with Jessie, leaving behind the place that was once their only refuge. Back at MI6 headquarters, Roberta watches the entire operation on the screen in total shock. Clearly, the person they are facing is not an ordinary terrorist. Realizing the level of danger exceeds expectations, Roberta immediately makes a bold decision, mobilizing MI6's most dangerous agent named Workman to join the hunt. Out at sea, on the boat cutting through the waves, Jessie realizes Mason is injured and the blood won't stop flowing, while also worriedly asking who the people who just attacked them were. Mason only replies briefly that they are ghosts from the past, coming back to haunt him. Without further explanation, Mason gives Jessie a gun and quickly shows her how to use it in the worst-case scenario. After that, they head toward a nearby house to find medicine to treat the wound before it's too late. Unfortunately, his act of sneaking into the house to find first aid supplies is discovered by a young boy. Just seconds later, the father appears and points a gun at Mason, making the situation breathtakingly tense. At that moment, Jessie steps out, pointing her gun back at the man, forcing him into a passive position, but clearly the girl has no ill intent and pleads with the man to help treat Mason. After a moment of hesitation, he finally reluctantly agrees. Meanwhile, at MY6, a member of Roberta's team discovers a shocking truth: the terrorist profile the EVA system assigned to Mason was actually not his. Someone had intentionally swapped his identity. Not only that, Mason's entire real file had been wiped clean from the system. Clearly, Mason is not a terrorist, but was once an MI6 agent. This discovery leaves Roberta completely stunned. She needs answers, and the only person who can explain everything now is Manafort. At the same time, through Eva, Manafort also receives information that Mason is still alive. That news leaves him equally shocked. Without hesitation, Manafort immediately sends a direct order to workmen. The moment you see Mason, eliminate both him and the girl. With him returning to the house, the father finally finishes treating Mason's wound. As Mason prepares to leave, he suddenly realizes something is wrong. The man's son had secretly called the police. Mason immediately warns the father and son to hide inside the house because outside armed forces have quickly surrounded the entire area. Meanwhile, Roberta and her team are monitoring every development through the surveillance system from MY6 headquarters. As the officers begin to close in, the father panics and pulls his son to run away. But at that exact moment, a cold gunshot rings out. Workman lying in ambush in a sniper position cold-bloodedly shoots down the father. Luckily, Mason rushes in just in time to save the boy from danger, then quickly pulls Jessie to hide behind the house. Outside, many officers are still waiting. Mason has no choice but to face them head-on. He knocks down each person one by one, seizes their weapons, and steals a car to escape. Workman immediately pursues in another car, continuously firing at Mason. Not to be outdone, Mason steers and rams Workman's car straight off the road and speeds away. During that time, Roberta calls Manafort directly, questioning Mason's true identity and the reason why his entire file was erased. Manafort has no choice but to tell the truth. Years ago, he established a top-secret unit called Black Hawk. Mason was the first agent, an elite assassin who followed orders, absolutely specializing in handling the world's most dangerous targets. But everything changed when Manafort assigned Mason a mission to assassinate a foreign officer believed to be a threat to national security. Mason refused without giving a specific reason. Manafort believed Mason had been swayed by that target, thus turning his back on the organization and becoming a traitor. Manafort emphasizes to Roberta that Mason is one of the most dangerous agents he ever trained, and if she wants to stop him, she must release her entire force. Roberta says she agrees, but in her heart, she does not trust Manafort at all. She orders her subordinates to dig deeper into the case, and then the horrific truth is revealed that foreign officer was actually a scientist researching a free cancer treatment for the whole world. Manafort wanted him dead at the request of pharmaceutical corporations, who would lose billions of dollars if that work were published. That was the reason Mason refused the mission and turned his back on MI6. At the same time, through the camera system, Manafort realizes Roberta knows the whole truth and will not easily stop. In another development, Mason and Jessie continue to drive away. On the way, Jessie asks if he is taking her to his family. Mason replies in a low voice that he has no family. To him, family only creates weaknesses and vulnerability, and for Jessie to be safe, he cannot let her be drawn deeper into the danger he is facing. The two find a church and meet Father Owen, who is actually Mason's old partner and former MI6 IT expert. Owen is stunned to see Mason appear with a young girl. Mason simply explains that Jessie was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Without many words, the three quickly get to work hacking into the EVA system. Through that, Owen discovers the real reason MI6 is desperately hunting Mason. His new identity was exposed and intentionally linked to the profile of an international terrorist. All clues point to only one person behind it, Manafort. Realizing there is no way back, Mason asks Owen to take care of and protect Jessie while he will go to resolve the threat at its root. Owen immediately refuses, not wanting to get further involved in this death spiral. However, Jessie sharply notices Owen's cancer medication and says she recognizes it. Jessie's mother passed away from that terrible disease. Faced with the girl's sincere eyes, Owen has to admit that he was diagnosed with cancer 5 months ago. Hearing that, Mason cannot hide his sorrow for his old friend. Finally, the three agree on a risky choice, seeking out Sean, a notorious criminal, but the only one who can still help them now. When Owen steps out to prepare the car, Mason suddenly senses something is wrong. Sure enough, in the next second, Workman appears. The confrontation between Mason and Workman is inevitable, fierce, and brutal. The two highest-trained assassins clash every strike intended to finish the opponent. After a breathtaking close-quarters struggle, Mason manages to wound Workman and immediately pulls Jesse and Owen to flee. Workman pursues at a frantic speed but still cannot catch up on the escape route. Jesse asks who that dangerous man was. Owen explains that Workman is almost a younger version of Mason. He is replacing Mason's position in MI6, continuing the killing work that he once performed. After that, Mason takes Jesse into the city to meet Shun. When it's just the two of them, Jesse asks why she can't stay with him. Mason says in a low voice that the danger following him is too great, and the only way to end it all is to destroy the source. Knowing she cannot stop him, Jesse takes Mason's hand and asks him to promise to return alive, but Mason only stays silent. He cannot bring himself to make that promise. Night falls and they appear at a bustling nightclub. As soon as they enter, their images are captured by security cameras, immediately triggering an alert in the system in two different places. Both Manafort and Roberta receive the information and simultaneously deploy their forces to this location. Inside the nightclub, Chen is stunned to see Mason in the flesh without beating around the bush. Mason gets straight to the point. He demands that Chen arrange for Jesse to be taken to Spain with a new identity and enough money so she can live safely, far from all danger. Initially, Shin refuses immediately, but then Mason says his hacker is holding all the details about the containers where Chen is hiding, girls in the ports. If Shin doesn't cooperate, all that data will be sent straight to MI6, and the price Shin will pay will not just be money, but his entire empire and his life. Hearing this, Shin's expression changes immediately. He asks Mason to wait a moment to arrange everything. During that time, Jesse cannot hide her hurt. She is angry and sad, knowing Mason intends to send her away alone. A moment later, Shin returns with a new passport and a stack of cash. He says he has prepared a contact at the port. This person will take Jesse to Spain safely, but the moment they leave the nightclub, forces from both Manafort's and Roberta's sides simultaneously storm in and blockade the entire building. Without hesitation, Mason takes the initiative to attack. He moves like a storm, taking down each officer coldly and precisely in a short time. The nightclub floor is littered with bodies with no room for hesitation or mercy. However, in the middle of the intense battle, an officer suddenly grabs Jesse and drags her out, forcing her into a black van. Mason immediately calls Owen for help from afar. Owen quickly hacks into the security camera system to guide Mason to the exact location of the van. Mason storms out step by step, moving forward, eliminating all those blocking his path like an unstoppable war machine. He rescues Jesse, who is in a state of extreme panic. Now the girl finally understands the level of danger Mason had always mentioned. The two continue to flee, but Workman has discovered them and immediately gives chase. The pursuit only ends when Mason and Jesse manage to reach the port. There, Chen's people are waiting with a boat. Mason reassures Jesse that she will be safe in Spain. In a choked-up moment, Jesse says that besides her uncle, Mason is her relative. Mason looks straight into the girl's eyes and promises that nothing will happen to him. Right at that moment, a gunshot rings out. Mason immediately pushes Jesse onto the boat. Then Chen's people quickly depart, taking the girl far away from this place of death. When Mason turns around, he sees Workman approaching, so he takes the initiative to challenge Workman to a one-on-one fight. No guns, no weapons. The two elite agents clash in a fierce and brutal battle. This is the confrontation between the number 1 and number 2 agents of the Black Hawk Squad. Although older, Mason proves that a lion is always a lion. He grabs a metal pipe and delivers the finishing blow, ending Workman's life in the blink of an eye. The next day at his private home, Manafort discovers all his bodyguards have been killed. At this point, Manafort finally admits Mason was once the most perfect weapon he possessed, but is disappointed because he no longer follows orders. But Mason doesn't care about that at all. He pulls the trigger, finishing Manafort on the spot. A month later in Spain, Jesse is sitting alone in a small restaurant. Meanwhile, Roberta is silently tracking the girl through the EVA system, believing that Mason would never truly abandon Jesse, and she realizes she was right. Outside, Mason quietly sends Jesse a gift. It is a queen chess piece. After that, he turns and walks away with a contented smile. Inside the restaurant, Jesse receives the gift and immediately smiles happily, knowing that Mason is still alive. Today's story ends here. Thank you for watching the movie. What do you think of this film? Please comment down below.